Welcome back to the Developer Odyssey, episode number 10, entitled 4 Steps to Learning Quickly. If this is the first video in this series that you've seen, I highly suggest that you go back to the playlist, and there's a link down in the description. Go back to the playlist and start at the beginning so you kind of get everything that we've been talking about so far up to this point. But of course, you can always skip around wherever you want, even in this video if you'd like to. Now, I know many of you are probably chomping at the bit. Maybe you've already started taking some tutorials or taking some classes, and you're just really wanting to learn as much as you can and learn as fast as you can. And so as we're getting closer and closer to the end of this series, as we're talking more and more about specific things, specifically about web design and web application development and mobile development and things like that in the upcoming videos, I wanted to just take a minute here and actually talk about the learning process, because it's important that you know how best to learn so that you can reach success faster in your ability to do the things that you want to do. Now, we talked about how there are different types of programming languages. So I'm going to use that language idea and kind of use one of the popular ways of learning languages quickly to help us understand how we can learn to code quickly as well. Really has 4 steps. You need to listen and read, and those kind of go hand in hand. And then you need to speak and write, and those kind of go hand in hand. So you kind of have the learning and you have the doing aspects. So listen and read, and then write and speak. One of the things that does is that gets all of your senses, well, most of your senses involved, unless you're licking something. That's probably not going to include taste, but it gets most of your senses involved. It gets your eyes involved, your ears involved, your speech involved in that process. And so touch for the writing part. So again, everything except for taste is there involved in the senses. So it gets all of these things involved in the process of learning a new language, or in this case, of learning how to code. So let's take the first part, which is listening. That's probably the easiest thing. It's probably the thing that you've already done. It's what you're doing right now, and to some extent, and that is basically getting training. So you need to get some sort of training, whether that's going to a boot camp, whether that's going to college or university, whether that's going to just Udemy or some other place like that, and getting tutorials, or just YouTube and watching tutorials on YouTube, getting some form of training where somebody is teaching you, somebody is telling you the things that you need to know in order to become a developer, in order to be a programmer, in order to write code, or to learn this framework, or to learn that language, or whatever it is that you're trying to learn. You need to have some way of listening, of learning. You need to have somebody who is teaching you something. So there's a teaching element, there's a learning element. Somebody is speaking to you about the information that you're trying to learn. So we have listening, and then we have reading. And again, these kind of go hand in hand in that training process. But the reading aspect is watching somebody else actually do it. See, I could sit here and talk all day long about programming things, but it wouldn't really help you a lot if I didn't actually show you visually what it looked like to write code. I could say, type print parentheses, hello world in parentheses, but that's not going to be very helpful. If I sit here and I type it out and I show you how that code is structured, that's going to help you understand it better. So you need to hear someone telling you what you need to learn. That's why it's hard to learn from a book, even though they have lots of instructions and examples and things like that in books. It's difficult to learn from a book compared to learning from YouTube or from a live instructor, because you're hearing them talk about it and you're also seeing them do it. Not just seeing the completion on a page, you're seeing them actually walk through the steps and walk through the process to get to where they're trying to help you understand you can go. So that's the training side of things. You need to hear what's being taught to you. You need to have somebody actually saying something to you, and you need to have somebody actually showing something to you. Those are extremely important if you want to learn quickly. You have to be told and shown what to do. Okay, now we're at the doing side of things, and this is even more important than the learning side of things, because really the doing is just a demonstration that you've actually learned. You can be taught lots of things, you can be told lots of things and shown lots of things, but that doesn't mean you can actually do it. So the doing part is saying, I've learned this, let me put it into practice. And there's two ways that you need to do this. The first way is through speech, and the second way is through writing. All right. Now, you may be wondering, why in the world would I need to talk about code? Well, whenever you're teaching somebody something, the best way to know if they've actually understood it is to ask them to explain it back to you. So if they can regurgitate really in their own words more effectively, if they can tell you what you've been trying to teach them, then you know that they've at least understood the concepts. They may not have all of the terminology or everything perfect, but if they can reply with the right basics of what you've tried to teach them, then you know they have actually learned it. So one of the things that I like to encourage junior developers to do is actually talk about what they want to write before they write it. And they don't have to talk to somebody in particular, but talk to yourself. Talk to yourself about what you want to write. Maybe even as you're talking about it, write down the things that you're saying. Write down the order of the process that you want to write out, the things, the steps that you want to do. And so if you can talk about what you're wanting to write as your code, then that gives you the confidence to know that you understood what was being said, what was taught, what was shown. If you get to a point you're like, I don't know how to explain this, then you need to go back and rewatch what was taught, or you need to go back to your instructor and say, hey, I don't think I'm getting this. I know I can do this and this and this, but I get to this part and I don't remember what I should do after that. Being able to talk through that not only helps you know that you understand it, it also helps you be able to explain to somebody else where you're struggling. And honestly, that's one of the biggest helps for a junior developer when they're working with a mentor or when they're working with an instructor, is to be able to explain where they're at in their thought process, to be able to explain what is the piece that they're struggling with. Because if you can't explain even that part, we don't know where to help you. We don't know. We just have to start back at the beginning. And at that point, you may be frustrated because now we're repeating things that you already know. Well, you need to be able to talk about what you have learned. You need to be able to talk about where you are at in your thought process so that you can explain to somebody who's trying to help you exactly where you're at, and they can then just jump right in and either show you what you're thinking that is wrong, or they can jump in and kind of help you see what that next step is in that process. So that's the speaking side of learning. And again, a lot of people avoid that or don't even think about that, but that is huge to helping you hear what you are saying, hear what you already know, and it reinforces what you have learned in your own mind. And so as you're speaking that, then you're actually learning faster because you're reinforcing faster. And then we've got the last step, which is the actual writing of code. So we have listened, or we've heard somebody explain something. We've watched or read, right? So we've listened and read, we've watched and listened to somebody explaining something to us. We've talked about it, we've talked through it, we've maybe even written down the things that we've said. We know that we have the right ideas in our heads. Now we're going to write the code. And if you go through that process, writing the code is really kind of the easy part, because at that point, you know basically what you need to do because you've already thought through everything. You've already talked through everything. And so now the writing of the code just becomes practice in writing code. And you already have the thinking down. You already have the planning down. You've already got the concepts down. Now you just have to actually practice writing it out, practice putting it in the right order, practice structuring it the right way so that it actually runs. All of that working together is going to help you grow in your coding process from being a no-coder to being somebody who is doing this full time. So those are just 4 simple steps to help you learn code as quickly as you possibly can. Hey, if you're finding this information helpful, I really appreciate it if you click the like button. It helps YouTube tell others about this if people are enjoying the content here. And then, of course, if you're not subscribed, I would ask that you do subscribe. Click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell icon so you're notified the next time that we upload another video in this series, or that we upload another standalone video, as we usually do those on Mondays and do the videos in this series on Wednesdays and Fridays. Thanks for spending time with me today, and I'll see you on the next one.